Speaking of narratives, I did, Sharon, want to get your take on what has been interesting to me to see as far as an evolution in the narrative the government is trying to land, in particular around cuts. Because there was a time, at the beginning of September when the word austerity was employed in French by the Prime Minister. And then you saw like 6 weeks where they weren't talking about cuts or austerity at all. I was told behind the scenes they don't want that to be the narrative. And then since that speech last week the Prime Minister delivered at the U of O, and then the comments today from Minister Champagne, like they're talking all of a sudden quite a bit more about it. What do you think is going on there?
It's setting the expectations. Listen, Liberal governments almost never want to talk about cuts because it implies a whole bunch to it that they don't want. You've got public sector unions that are very vocal, have always been vocal, but to be very clear, and this is probably an unpopular opinion coming from a centrist individual, is we have to cut the public service. We're talking about building in this country, and we talk about build, baby, build. We got to cut, baby, cut as well, because the federal government is grown to a size that makes no sense. And listen, having spent many, many years working for all three levels of government, and most recently the federal government, I can say there are some really valuable, thoughtful leaders who work in the public sector who bring expertise.
Former federal Liberal wanting cuts. That's different.
There's a lot of people who do not need to be in those roles. And to be honest, the federal public service should not just be a place of employment, it should be a place of service. And if the service standards are not getting where they need to be, and we've seen that with reporting around CRA and others, attrition sure is one thing, early retirement, but I personally would like to see it go a bit deeper than that. I think there's a way to bring the entire public service to a more efficient operating machine, and I think that's what they're trying to do. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that public sentiment, the general public doesn't love the idea that the public service is a place where people can just treat it as a place of employment where they go and knock at that same service standard. It should not be one of the largest employers in the country, and I think that they're setting the expectations for that.
Do you think they are doing that, Sebastian? And I ask because if, for example, the last conversation we had about the probability or possibility of the NDP supporting them is a factor in passing the budget, I do think they certainly can't talk the way Sharon just did if they want to secure that support. What do you think?
Well, I think this is the beauty of being a Mark Carney Liberal. It is saying one thing, doing another, and saying another thing altogether entirely. This is, I mean, you said the word evolution. I think this is a giant flip-flop, and it is a incredible middle finger to a lot of the NDP left socialist government workers, and there's commas between those categories, by the way, that put their trust behind the Prime Minister and are now getting some whiplash. So I think we'll see how this turns out. I don't suspect that the voters in Ottawa and Nepean will be particularly happy with the Prime Minister's position on this.